Well, good morning, everybody. I had to pick a spot to start this morning, and so I'm going to go back to the weekend temperatures here, just looking at a map that shows the average temperature ranks by climate district. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to get into some of the new details about the changes in the tropical behavior, especially the system coming out of the Bay of Campeche into the Gulf of Mexico right now. I'll stretch this out and look at all of the models again, and then we'll walk into a longer range forecast, which is going to feature some pretty wildly changing temperatures for some folks after what you saw this past weekend, and then a bit of a discussion about La Niña in South America. So all of that is ahead of us. This past weekend, though, was record hot across the West, and we saw the heat advisories, the heat watches, and heat warnings, and everywhere that you see the number 1, that was the new hottest weekend, so from the 5th to the 8th, that there's been on record here. It was also very hot down in Florida, and that's key because I've mentioned for a while there's been this stalled out frontal boundary on which the convection has been brewing in this area. And to the south of it, we've been very warm, and to the north of it, well, we just saw the big cool down this past weekend. There was some patchy frost that came through parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and into Michigan, and this morning we're continuing to keep an eye right here in the Appalachian Mountains for some frost. The weekend heat in the west, though, continued to kind of push the wildfire risk even farther, and I'll show you some maps of what that looks like here in a few seconds. But take a look at this national kind of satellite image this morning as the sun is rising right here. We even have some tendrils of smoke this morning right here coming off of our east coast. Now, this is that frontal boundary. We're going to get into this in just a few moments here. But if I take you back yesterday, there it is. Look at the wildfire smoke that spread throughout much of the Midwest, upper Midwest plains, all the way down here into parts of the mid-Atlantic. And that wildfire smoke was mostly from these large fires that were in the Pacific Northwest, which we need to kind of zoom in there and have a closer look. There was a weaker low that was coming right over Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, and some of the strong winds, which we were worried about this weekend, really kicked up another fire here in Idaho. Now, that's not to take away from the fires that are back in Oregon or Washington or down in California, but that fire was quite intense, pushed along by some very, very strong winds. So that's going to need to be observed and watched again today as we get into another day where the winds in the west are going to continue to push that wildfire smoke around and spread these fires. So looking at our vertically integrated smoke forecast for the next 48 hours, this is just a quick snapshot here from the high-resolution rapid refresh model showing where that wildfire smoke is expected to go. Now, the western United States is going to see some pretty big temperature swings here coming up, and there's a lot of heat that's moving east with this pattern. It is unblocked, it is open, and with that, we have to be paying attention to the timing of the tropical system that we're going to be watching here coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and the next deep low that goes into the northwest. So back to a quick review of this weekend. This is what precipitation totals look like for the 3 previous days leading up to early this morning. And one of the areas that I've been really keeping a close eye on for the risk of flooding out of this next tropical system is going to be Louisiana. So they did have some locally heavy rain here. Some better rains got into the southeast, which was needed. We expected the low to curl up here, Ontario, Quebec, and drive some rain into parts of the northeast and the eastern Great Lakes this weekend. So I'd have to say this verified pretty well with last week's forecast. But now we get into this discussion about the deep drop tropical convection that is ongoing right now coming out of the Bay of Campeche into the Gulf of Mexico. And it is deep, it's extensive. And there's that frontal boundary we keep talking about. And we need to see where this is going to go because as of early this morning, let's get an update on this. There's the 7:37 a.m. update. It's called Tropical Depression 6. And we do have 2 other areas behind it, both of which have a 60% chance of developing now. And we're starting to see the kind of the lid come off of the off of the atmosphere here, allowing for better tropical cyclone development. And I'll show you where I think these might go soon, but we got to keep an eye on Tropical Depression 6 because as of this morning's newest update, there it is expected to reach hurricane status by Wednesday and go right over the top of Louisiana and right along the Mississippi River. Now, what's important about this is that that all week last week I was very suspicious, even though we didn't see much model support from this. We were kind of suspicious about this area because the artificial intelligence gave us good timing between where this, tropical low was going to be pulled to the north as a big ridge settled into the Midwest and a trough developed over the west. We talked about that being the combination. So this was, in my book, another win for the artificial intelligence picking up on something early. But we now need to get in and try to discuss the hazards of this because it is going right along the Mississippi River. Now, to show you the newest super blend of models, so we're going to use the European, the GFS, the UK Met, and the CMC. This is where they have things moving. So this is out there on September the 11th. We're now into the 12th and the 13th. So it primarily looks like the 12th and 13th where this is going to have its greatest influence. Now, model tracks will continue to shift over the next couple of days, so we can't rule out, this side of Texas all the way over to, the Mississippi coastline. But it appears right now that the risk of it hitting Louisiana is highest, and that is just following an area that recently had some extremely heavy rainfalls along the Gulf Coast. Now, into the interior, we are significantly drier. But as it stands, I just want to keep an eye out on this because we've already seen the National Weather Service put out for Wednesday into Thursday morning a moderate risk for excessive rainfall, and I think it could very quickly go up to the high risk as we get closer and closer to this time frame. So to put some of this in context, I wanted to show you the last 2 weeks of observed rainfall. And again, you can look at any spot you want to around the country here, but if you don't mind, just today, I'm going to go down into, I think I need to go into the south central view. There you are. And we can see that in the last couple of weeks, we've had some places along the coast picking up well over 10 inches to 15 inches of rain. And even in the interior, there's several spots in here that are 7, 8, 9, 10 inches just in the last couple of weeks alone. The farther north you go into Arkansas, Missouri, western Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Illinois, these are all areas that are desperate to get this rainfall. And unfortunately, as we look at the forecast, getting it much farther to the west is very limited in the outlook. So maybe a quick map looking at the last 30 days of accumulated precipitation as a percent of normal, and we can see how dry that particular region is and the possible benefit of having a slower moving, decaying tropical system. My greatest concern is here. That this is the area onto which I think we're going to have the storm surge, the wind, and the flood threat. And to be honest, I can't give you specifics on its strength just yet. It's still a tropical depression. We do know the environment is favorable ahead of it, meaning that we have lower wind shear. The ocean temperatures are certainly warm enough, and we do expect development. But does it reach Cat 1, Cat 2? Some of the forecast models had this reaching Category 3, and we just need to pay attention to all of the updates today, plus the expert analysis that's going to come out today now that we're starting a new week. Now, outside of this, kind of breaking away from the drought that's here up into the mid-Atlantic, the drought that's in parts of the Great Lakes, the northern plains, very patchy drought in the upper Midwest. And then even though this is a 30-day map, you know that there have been times over the last 30 days inside this circle that we've gotten very, very dry. In the Northwest, wait until you see this next system that's going to meet up with this one that's going to come through. And we'll take a look at what that could do in terms of wind and also early onset of kind of precipitation in the Northwest too. So more context here. This is what August 1st through September 8th has looked like. And so while we've been wet here, it's farther inland that I'm concerned that we could get this moisture in, breaking what has been, a rapid drought development. We saw that on Friday when we looked at the drought monitor. So from there, let's pick up 2 more maps. The first one is going to be our soil moisture map. So while we are certainly saturated there, the farther north you go, this is an area that really needs to get the moisture from this system. And if we can get it farther north or back farther to the west, hooray. But right now, this is an area that I expect over the next 2 weeks to not be seeing much drought relief. Now, there is a system, and I'm going to show it to you in a second, but I'm talking about breaking this drought that's in this area. I think it's going to be very difficult along this part of the Missouri Basin and farther to the south here into parts of Nebraska and Kansas and Oklahoma as well. So one last thing to talk about with this particular tropical system is the Mississippi River, which this morning at Memphis was 7 feet below low stage. If the forecast I'm about to show you really verifies, then this will start to reverse the drop and decline of the river levels throughout the entirety of the lower basin, which would be very important going into this fall. All right, so here it is. This is the tropical system. We're now going to get into some model forecast here. And what's going to be interesting about this Tropical Depression 6, which maybe later on today could, what's the name going to be? Francine? I should have looked that up. Hurricane name. Oh, it helps if I could spell. Names 2024. Francine. There we go. Sorry. Anyways, let's go back to it. So if it does end up getting that name, Francine will move pretty far to the north here, and it'll be helped along by this. So let me shift your view to the mid-levels and show you this. It's not this trough. This one is closed off and it's outside of the flow. There's actually more meridional north-south flow than anything. It's this. It doesn't look like much, does it? But this is going to develop by midweek and get right in through here, while this ridge that you see in this area opens up farther to the Great Lakes, bringing in a lot of warmth. This is kind of opening the doorway when this moves here, and this is kind of pulling it in from behind, meaning whatever this ends up becoming, if it's a stronger hurricane or if it remains Cat 1 or Cat 2, doesn't matter. Francine will be kind of ushered in because the ridge is opening up ahead of it, and the trough that's diving in behind it helps to pull this farther to the north. And we talked a lot about that last week. And I said it was the artificial intelligence that grabbed this. Now, after you see the artificial intelligence forecast, I want you to pay attention to what follows it, because there's a very, very interesting wave that's going to come through that we need to see if it's got some robust, I don't know what the right phrase is here, but life in the model. Is it there in multiple models? So playing this forward, here it is. There's that trough by tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, digging in. So now you see the ridge opening. That's the door kind of getting open. The flow comes around the bottom of this one, meaning this circulation has just kind of this net pull on it in this direction. Now, there is also surface higher pressure here that's helping to push it. There's a lot of different things, but historically, western U.S. troughs help pull Gulf systems north. That's just what we teach that, at the university. Hey, that's what you got to look out for. This also means with the big western U.S. trough, what is this going to do in terms of precip and kicking off a system that's going to come out into the western and northern plains here as this low rolls right over the mid-south, right about there. Thursday night should be almost over Memphis, what's left of it. And then we get into, Saturday. And what's interesting is another trough comes into the west while this one gets pulled north. So notice that one didn't come racing through. It kind of dove down and starts to make a northward retreat. So we have the lingering low sitting here by this Saturday. We'll take a look at the precip from that. And we're going to keep an eye on what follows this. So here we are next Monday. We could still be dealing with the remnants of this low sitting over this part of the Mid-South and Southeast. But at that point next Monday, some of the models are really becoming aggressive with another West Coast trough, dipping this one all the way into Southern California. I mean, that's really deep. Now, this is the 17th, so let's do something here. I'm going to show you the new European model. Now, we have to go back to the previous run. Let's get out there to the 17th. Right here. The European model has it in there. So it's not just in the artificial intelligence, it's also in the European. Let's go check the GFS. So we're working on getting the 6Z run in. The 6Z run, also it has something, not quite as similar to the European, but it's got something down there, something coming through California, way out there, just after the middle of the month on the 16th. Now the ensembles are washing this out a bit. You can see here is the 16th, 17th. There's something in the west, but where it goes after that is still a bit of a difficult forecast by day 10. And the GFS has it as well. I mean, that is look at this. And there could be a tighter feature down here that's just not being resolved in the models. Let's go back to the artificial intelligence because it was one of the more, I think it's been doing well lately with picking up on the high pattern. So there it is. This gets pulled right over the Rocky Mountains. It digs in deep. And then as you saw, look at this, might kind of make this turn right in the midsection of the country. Now, what I want to know is there any cold air in this? I mean, 555 as a height line, I'd be worried if it was 540, but this is going to be a pretty deep little low if it forms. So we are in what's officially called La La Land in the forecast. We're way out here. But can we just now watch something else? We've been doing this for months. Let's just keep an eye on the AI model to see if it keeps that around. That's all. All right? Okay. Why do we care? Troughs that sweep through like this can initiate huge storm systems. And we are approaching fall. By some measures, September 1 is the beginning of fall. So we've got something to watch, and there's reason and purpose to be watching it. So that's why we're getting into this. Now, back to the tropics, because we had two other systems out in the Atlantic we were keeping an eye on. There's these two lows. So as I play this forward, looking at low-level winds, here we go. That's Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. What could be Francine is making, a shot at Louisiana here. The other two lows, as this one moves over, the Mid-South, really don't have a whole lot going for them. The Bermuda high is over the Azores. It's not, closer to Bermuda. And also take note, right in through here, look at this low-level jet that comes up around that that low-pressure system here, which means we need to start thinking about what this could do in terms of precip in the upper Midwest. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So just take note that the models are not aggressive on taking whatever's here and bringing it into the East Coast. Our only system, I think, to be talking about for the next 5 to 7 days is going to be, well, at least the only one that could make landfall, is going to be Tropical Depression 6, soon to be named, Francine. Okay, so let's see if this will run for me. I was having a little trouble with my website this morning. I am almost done with the rebuild. We're going to give you 2 different versions of the site. I had a lot of folks say they really like the old version, so I did too, so we might go back to a version of that. But this is playing through the rest of the day today. Maybe some isolated storms here, eastern Great Lakes, northeast. We then watch the heavy rains coming into the Texas coast. This is 11 a.m. Tuesday. This is what the NAM is doing with Francine. Notice the storms along the, here in the Western Plains, Rocky Mountains, Front Range, some isolated rain in the upper Midwest. Stalled out front still over Florida. But remember, it's timing. There's deep low, the big one that's coming into the northwest. There's the low that's going to work together. Remember, this one's going to curl around like this. Francine should do something like that. But the high-res NAM only plays out 60 hours, so I can only get you out there to 1 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon Central Time. Now, from here, take a look at the models. WPC. Remember last week, WPC had none of this? And actually, it had more rain in Oklahoma and Kansas, and it's all shifted. The model right now, as you see, is putting down, 3 to 4 inches of rain through here. Then the second system, let's go take a look at the NBM. Again, 2 to 4 inches of rain. There's the second low. Let's go look at the artificial intelligence. Now, this one's been the most consistent, but it also has 3 to 4 inches of rain out of this. Almost a northern edge right through here. What would we call that? Like I-74. Then let's go look at the HRES. Oops, sorry, let's shrink that up. There's the high-resolution rapid refresh model. Oh, no, forgive me. The European model, high-resolution version. 7-day total precip. And here is the GFS. Now, nobody commented on this, so please comment. Do you like the yellow numbers that are overlaid when the rainfall amounts get high, or just leave it all black? Your call. If you say, I like yellow, I don't care. Just a couple of you say it, I'll do it. I think I like it. I think it just jumps out a little bit better here. But anyway, 7-day GFS model forecast. We're going to look specifically at the European HRES, the high-resolution version, and we're going to play this through. We've already seen through the next 60 hours. So we've seen out through here with the NAM. So we play this forward. There's that early morning Thursday landfall, timed with the deep low moving over Idaho and Montana. See this? And then we're going to keep an eye on where everything is by Saturday. That's Saturday, 7 a.m. Low number 1 is now in parts of Saskatchewan. The tropical event is down here over the mid-south, spreading some rain into the southeast, possibly some rain in Nebraska and in the Dakotas. Now, you remember, there's a second low that's coming. See it right there? This is out 1 week from now. And while we continue to see wetter conditions being spread by the model here, at the end of this forecast run, just watch what happens out of Southern California into Arizona, Utah, out of Nevada, back over this region. Boy, that's going to be something to watch all week. That's going to be fun. It's a fun forecast, but we got to keep an eye on this. All right. From there, I do want to let you know there's some winds with this, of course. Let's play this out. We've got maximum accumulated wind gusts. I'm just going to give you the full 10 days. So you can see that each of these systems that comes out of the Pacific Northwest into Idaho and Montana, we could get some winds up here pretty strong. Notice my new maps, we've got some numbers overlaid, so you can kind of just get a quick glimpse. If we just go ahead and open this image in a new tab real quick, we can kind of zoom in there a little farther. Right now, I don't think the European models got the gust strength right into Louisiana. We'll just have to wait. This is what I don't think I know very well and can't conclusively say, but we're going to have some stronger winds with this coming through. Maybe gusts as high as 40 to 50, maybe 60-mile-an-hour gusts getting pretty far to the north. At landfall, that's what's going to be tricky. Okay, so probability-wise, here's the best chance at an inch. So it's our two systems. Here's the best chance at 2 inches. New model run, of course. 10-day. That's your chance at 2 inches. Here's the chance at 4. And do we have any at 8? Well, a little bit. Who's drier? It's all on the back side of this, between these two systems. And this is why I was so concerned last week about Texas, parts of Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. This whole region is going to be missed by this next system. And then you can see pockets of the Northeast are drier. And Ontario, sections are drier. Now, Eastern Ontario, fine. Western Ontario, they've been drier as of late. But certainly wetter conditions moving out of the Northwest with this pattern. Okay, all the week 2 models. Take a look. Some consistency here. The AI, though, holy smokes, it's really trying to rip off another system here that's going to come out of California and go straight through this area. Again, more than a week from now. This is when I got you out there to hour 300, taking that system through. So we don't want to give it too much weight. But you do note that this region in all 4 models, is showing up with an active kind of setup for week 2. So again, play around with this on the website. Again, I'll give you the new design. We'll rename the sites so they're a little bit easier to access, just depending on which version you want. But please go take advantage of this. All right, from there, let's talk about frost. This was the potential for this week. So there's much colder air coming into the west very soon. There's the frost risk this morning over in the Appalachian Mountains. If we take a look at today's max temperatures, though, there's Monday's max temperatures. As we go into Tuesday, look at the heat moving into the northern plains, then eventually into the Midwest. Now, of course, all this cools down because of cloud cover, but that's the trough. See, this is really kind of fun how this works. Thursday, a lot of heat out ahead of this deep trough. Getting into Friday, all cloud cover from Francine, deep low in the west, a lot of heat in between. Look at the contrast. This is pretty amazing. There's Saturday into Sunday. So that's a full week's worth of temperature for you. So much cooler air coming into the west, shoving the ridge farther to the east, opening things up. If you want to look at, let's zoom that back out a little bit. I got to fix that feature on my new site. But here you go. This would be the day 0 to 5, day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15 from the European. And down here is from the GFS. These are their ensembles. And you can kind of just look at the screen and get an idea what's going on. The ridge is opening, see it? And the west is cooling back down. And we tend to stay out there. If you just look at that day 10 through 15, there just tends to be this pattern that wants to toss ridges in here. And this is correlated with the MJO movement. It's very consistent with what's been going on with La Niña. There's a lot about this pattern I can make reason of right now. And it's all these things, right? So what about the Southern Oscillation Index? Continues to climb. You're saying, what is that again? That's where the trade winds are getting stronger. What are strong trade winds a part of? They're a part of La Niña. We've seen more cold water upwell here because the trade winds have been picking up their momentum. If you're unfamiliar with this, the stronger those winds blow, the more warm water piles up here, and the more upwelling from down below we bring to the surface here. That's why you got cool water. La Niñas are trade wind change events. That's what they are. Trade winds get going faster. We've seen the ocean temperatures drop. Right now, we are down to minus 0.6 C, and we've continued to watch this strengthen. And the MJO has just settled into phase 5 and may pop out into phase 6. And we analyzed that last week. That's western U.S. troughs. That's what we typically get out of this pattern. There's another part to this, and that is that the Hofmüller diagrams, they look a bit of a mess right now, but this is where the MJO is living. Right here. Where is that? Straight down, phase 5, 6. But there's a bit of a piece of it that might be moving over to this area, meaning that we are now no longer with all of this upper level suppression sitting on top of the hurricane development region, meaning as we approach the peak of the hurricane season, which is somewhere between like the 12th and the 15th, we are going to be making the environment much more conducive. From there, let's take a look at the mid-September to mid-October forecast. This is from the European model. Almost no change from what I talked to you about on Friday. We continue to see more West Coast troughs, which is why we see wetter here and wetter into the Canadian prairie. We're drier here primarily because of more ridging. That's being forecast. But I'll just be honest, this is the area, include the southeast too, that this won't verify if we get another tropical system. So we have to take this with a grain of salt at this time of year. But overall, the model is trying to keep a lot of the warmer weather to the east of the Rockies, but cooler in the west. And that's expected if you continue to dig those deeper troughs into that area. Is there any support from the CFSV2? Now, this doesn't go out as far, but the CFSV2 does have drier here as well, with near normal to wetter than normal in the west. So that at least is consistent. And the temperature pattern, okay, this would be the 23rd to the 29th, the 30th through the 6th. Still a lot of heat in the interior of North America, which is consistent. I have to look into why the model was cooler to the south. I don't know if that's just a carryover from what's going on right now, or if it's attempting to generate more tropical systems. That I don't know. I sometimes don't really like the CFSV2 because it jumps around so much. But a moment ago I said, well, La Niña. We have La Niña-like behavior, and you say, well, what does that mean? Well, if you boil it down to precipitation for October, November, December, wherever you see the warmer colors, that tends to be a positive correlation with the ocean temperatures, meaning if there's an El Nino, it's wetter here. But we don't have that. So when you see the warmer colors, I'll put a D so it's clear, that would be drier. The cooler colors would be wetter. So that's why we expect to see the Pacific Northwest into the Canadian Prairie wetter, while we see drier conditions across the southern tier, the central U.S., and the southeast. Now, I'm bringing all of this up in terms of precipitation because we looked at this last Friday. And the models for October, November, December were wetter here, wetter there, and drier across the south, right? I mean, the southern half of the United States, it was drier. Well, that's now being supported by the new the new National Multi-Model Ensemble, NMME, suite of models we run in the United States. Very similar outlook for October, November, and December. But what about getting right back into winter? You remember that December, January, February, we knew that these winds, the subtropical winds, were going to be weaker. Highly variable Pacific jet, probably diving in like this, coming over the Rockies and leaving. Okay, not strong, but variable in its pace, in its location. And now the newest forecast from the National Multi-Model Ensemble looks very similar. So you can imagine what this means. Possibility of being dry south, a legit winter north, active Ohio River Valley storm track possible. I mean, that's what La Niña typically spells out. So that's why we're keeping this narrative going to understand where this upcoming winter could be. And the other part of this, the impact of La Niña is going to be in South America. And throughout this week, I'm going to be kind of dropping a bit more into this simply because I had a good conversation with Matt Bennett over the weekend, talking about when is the monsoon going to start. I've just been telling you that I think it's going to start on time, and I want to make a case for that. I want you to know why I think that, and so you also know the failure modes with it as well. But there's no doubt that yesterday was one of the smokiest days across Brazil so far this late, it's early spring for them. And you can see just a prolific wildfire and some controlled burns in here as well, but a lot of smoke. When you look back over the last 3 months, you can still see that it was one of the driest, early June to early September timeframes on record for big sections of their growing area. But I'm going to make this statement again. This can all be undone in 2 weeks. That's how the monsoon can behave. It can just quickly wipe this out. And even over the next 10 days, we see the models more aggressively forecasting rain. I mean, this is hitting some key acres in Mato Grosso, Sao Paulo, Paraná, down here to Santa Catarina and Rio Grande do Sul. These are areas that sometimes hang on to dryness long if the dry season is not giving way to the normal monsoonal circulation. So what I'm focused on here is the fact that, through the rest of September, I'm not expecting early monsoon in September. I'm expecting it to arrive in October. So if you look at the very end of September through the first 3 weeks of October, the European continues to back off on the risk of being dry here. It tends to be more dry in Argentina, but you're not seeing it in this area. And so it's now been, 10 days I've been showing you this. Until that model trend breaks, until I have evidence to the contrary, I think it's going to rain in October. And why do I keep going on about October? Well, I'll show you last year's planting progress for soybeans. This is the 6th of October. So basically, about a month from now, they only typically have 10% of the crop planted. But from there to November, they plant, almost 80% of the crop. That is why we focus so much on October. So if October rains are present, then the likelihood of a fast plant is there. And that's what we're covering, okay? We'll cover more of the world and talk a bit more about South America throughout the rest of this week. And we'll keep an eye on this tropical system and the deep low that's coming to the northwest. But I'm going to stop here and say I'll just talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.